Alrighty then. Hi, welcome to the stream. My name is Mlunge Tobelan. Um, yeah. So today we got like what 4 5 topics to cover. We'll see how far we go. We will see how far we go. Probably do like if we can do like 2 hours. A 2 hour stream will be dope. Let me make sure I record here. Okay. And we live. Okay, sharp. So yeah, today, what are we talking? So we're probably going to start with this. We're probably going to start with the South African Reserve Bank. They released their meeting date for the MPC. The MPC is the Monitoring Policy Committee, which is like led by the governor, Lerato Kganyaga. I think everyone knows Mr. Lerato, right? But the committee meets every 2-3 months. 2-3 months to decide the interest rate, whether it goes down or it goes up. Because previously though, I mean last year they met and they pretty much dropped the interest rate every time, because the interest rate, if you look at it, started at what 7.75 at the beginning of the year. 7.75. No. Yeah. In fact, they started cutting in January. Like the first meeting, they cut 7.75 in December 24. And then in January, first meeting, 7.5. Which is great for consumers, right? But you know, the repo rate, what does it mean? I'll try to go live on TikTok as well. Let's see if we can go live on TikTok. No, not that. My goodness. So that's what it is. I think you have. Okay. Okay. I keep distracted as well. But the messed up thing about TikTok is that you can't share your screen, and it's nice if I can share my screen, you know. But they logged me in there. They just said full experience unlocked. I don't know what that means. I've been going live for a while, but they've been blocking me every time because I share my screen like I'm doing right now. So let's see. TikTok. All right. I was talking about the South African Reserve Bank. They're gonna meet 6 times this year. 29 January, 26 March, 28 May, 23 July, 23 September, and 19 November. And when they met last year, they pretty much dropped the interest rate every time, because the interest rate went from 7.75 in December 2024 to, I mean, the first time they met in January 30, they cut 25 basis points to 7.5%. So, and they cut it all the way to I don't know, someone is inviting me to co-host here on TikTok. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that right now. So yeah, I was saying they drop the interest rate every time. All the way to 6.75. Right now it's at 6.75, right? Which is great. And what does it mean? The repo rate is basically a benchmark, right? So the repo rate is like a benchmark that people use, or the banks use, in fact. Like for example, the Reserve Bank is the ultimate lender, right? For banks, it's the ultimate lender. So there is FNB, Standard Bank, ABSA, they all borrow from the Reserve Bank, and the rate that the Reserve Bank uses when they lend money to them is the repo rate, right? Yeah, and then that repo rate is also used as a benchmark when they now, or the commercial banks are now borrowing to Abantu. So let's say if it's at like 6.75% right now, like it is. So, and then you have figure and I say or Taban or Funi loan, that 6.75% is going to be used as a benchmark to pretty much structure a loan for you. So then they're going to add 5%, 6%, 7%, depending on the riskiness of you as a thing, as a debtor, right? So, for example, if you're a risky person, no, I call it to Zach, they're gonna put like 10% on top of everything, or on top of your of the 6.75%, and then you end up paying what 16.75%. So that's how the repo rate is used, right? And then as to how it relates to investing, it's pretty much like the for people it works the same, for businesses as well it works the same. So I mean, I'm a businesses, they also pay debts. I mean, credit pretty much revolves around everything that has to do with expenditure in the economy. So, picture this for you: if umuntu and you're a person and you're paying like 2.5 per month on all of your debts, like your debt repayments is like 2.5, and then the interest rate on you with like 1% or 25 basis points, doesn't matter. It's not that much. What's going to happen is that your interest rate is going to go high. I mean, your debt repayments are going to go high, right? Simple and straightforward. But then if conversely, from interest rate they drop, your interest rate or your debt repayments are going to go down as well. So it's the same for companies. So when you're investing and how it affects your investing process. Hi everyone. Hi. How you doing? Hi Cherry. Hi Ngungu. I hope I'm saying it right. Hello. How you guys doing? So in this channel or in this account, these are people on TikTok, chat on TikTok. So we're talking about investing and we're talking about finance and we're talking about business. So if you guys wanna join me, please, it would be lovely if you got time. Join me on YouTube it's an investing pod, right? So that's where I'm streaming. Kahle kahle. So I was here on TikTok, but they suspended me here. They kicked me out because I'm actually sharing my screen by fit. So if you got time and you got YouTube, just go to Investing Pot. I mean, you can go to my account. The link is there. You'll see the link to YouTube, and you can pretty much stream in there. I just started. If you want to join, I just started, and we're gonna go for like 2 hours or so, and we talk about investing, and today I wanted to cover WeBuyCars. I wanted to cover Tigerbrands. I also wanted to cover the Venezuela thing, like with Trump and everyone. Who else did I want to cover? So yeah, and a pretty range of topics. Pretty much everything that affects investing. And right now, I was discussing the 6 dates that the South African Reserve Banks are gonna meet, right? And then I was saying how it affects your investing is that it's the same as it does for you as a person, right? If the interest rates go up, your debt repayments go up. So it's the same for companies. And then for companies, the thing about it is that for companies are valued based on their cash flows, like how much cash they retain, not even how much cash they generate. A company can generate a lot of cash, but you find that they don't retain a lot of that cash. Why? Because they are over indebted. So what then tends to happen is that those cash flows that are used to value a company, they shrink, right? Because they have to repay it back to the banks and everything else. So when the cash flows shrink, consequentially the value of a company also shrinks. And then what you'll find is that if the value shrinks, that means the share price is gonna go down, right? That's how it affects your investing. But it's not a straightforward relationship, because there's a lot of things that affect investing, especially when you're valuing a company, right? Because it's not just the interest rate payments. There's stuff like capital expenditures as well, and companies are different. Like there are companies that require a lot of capital investments, and there are companies that don't require a lot of capital investments, right? So those are all the things that eat away the cash flow of a business, and consequentially how you value a business. It can go from being valued to 70 rands to 55 bucks simply because there's something eating away the cash. And that's how interest rates relate to investing. So they're gonna meet 6 times next year, which is 29 January. When is 29 January? In fact, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. Isn't it crazy that soon January will be finished, and then your first salary goes to repaying all the debts equal to what to January. 29 Jan, 26 March, 28 May, 23 July, 23 September, and 19 November. So yeah, we will see. But what's the state of South Africa? Like right now, like last year they cut a lot. And the stock market gained a lot last year, but it was really boosted by gold stocks like mining companies. So mining companies did very well last year, right? And there's a reason for that as well. We're gonna discuss it, Masasphere go Trump, and then we're gonna talk about silver and gold and stuff like that, because yeah, that's the sort of stuff that kind of moves around the market. But this year we will see. But with interest rates this low, I mean, it stimulates investing. It stimulates my companies. I'm sure everywhere you walk around, you've seen my buildings rising on pretty much in every suburb or every suburban area. If you go around, even if it's not suburban, but that's how you see. Like if big companies are constructing, like you see more building and more skyscrapers in the city. That means money is cheap, And right now, like the interest rate is like 6.75, and it was hiked during COVID. They brought it all the way down to, what was it during COVID? They brought it all the way to 3.5. So it's almost like right now it's double COVID levels, which is not a lot, right? Comparing to where we were, but it got to 8.25 in May 2023 because of inflation. Like there was a lot of inflation because of all the stimulus that was put in the market during a COVID. Yeah, kumbula ma 350, even 350. Yeah, in America they had stimulus checks, and they were spending them, investing them in the stock market. There was even fraud, I think, in America with triple P loans and stuff like that. So there was a lot of money in the market during that was printed during COVID, right? Hi everyone, hi. Ora marope. How's it, Buffett? Thank you for the like. You can join me on YouTube, Buffett. I'm actually on YouTube, right? Where I'm actually sharing my screen, and I just started. I'm gonna go for like hour or so more. And right now, I wanted to talk about WeBuyCars. So WeBuyCars fired Udaka, like Udaka Automotives. You guys know Dakar, the ones that they usually work with Uber. I know them from Uber, because if you want ukufaka imoto yakho ka Uber, ibona bayitestayo. So WeBuyCars had been using them for a while. So if you want ukudayisa imoto yakho, Dakar would do the testing on behalf of WeBuyCars, right? And then WeBuyCars would buy the car, and then they would resell it to someone else, right? That's WeBuyCars' business model. So now what happened is, a couple of years ago, a lot of people have been complaining about WeBuyCars and the condition of motors, WeBuyCars. So consequently, what WeBuyCars did is they crashed out and they fired WeBuyCars, and they created their own company, right? They created a division within WeBuyCars where they're going to pretty much vet these cars that they're gonna be buying, vet the companies for themselves. Mhamba watino, how's it? Mhamba. or Mhama, Spumlile, how's it? Yeah, so they fired Dakar and then they established their own company. I'm gonna read. So let's look at this article. So this article says, WeBuyCars ditches Dakar Automotive's vehicle condition report, and goes on and to further establish Inspectify, its own vehicle inspection company with cutting-edge technology to differentiate it from other vehicle dealers. I don't know why people do that a lot on TikTok. Like they keep inviting you to. Let's see Inspectify. So they fired to Dakar, and they created a company called Inspectify. Inspectify is their own company, just keeping everything indoors, pretty much, right? So the article WeBuyCars has ended its ties with Dakar Automotive, which previously provided independent vehicle condition reports to the JSE listed used vehicle buyer and seller for use by prospective buyers, and has now established its own vehicle inspection company. So this article is on MoneyWeb. MoneyWeb last year received an unprecedented number of complaints from consumers about the quality and accuracy of the information in the vehicle condition reports compiled by Dakar for WeBuyCars customers. So basically, a lot of people they were reporting to MoneyWeb. They reported to MoneyWeb, these cars they bought from WeBuyCars was not nah. They were not nah. Like the quality was not nah, and the information, like the accuracy of the information in the report was not okay. So MoneyWeb last year received an unprecedented number of complaints from consumers. That's it. So WeBuyCars sales director Jensen Ponting confirmed on Monday the company has ended their ties with Dakar and replaced it with vehicle condition report compiled by Inspectify, a new subsidiary of WeBuyCars. So a subsidiary is basically a company of a company. It's like they created their own company, right? They probably own majority, not probably, they own majority of the company, right? So there are two companies side by. There are two companies. If a company is invested in other companies, so companies comes into formats, right? So there's a subsidiary, and then there's an associate company. A subsidiary is when the company, like WeBuyCars in this instance, subsidiary owns, or WeBuyCars owns more than 50% of the incumbent company, right? Which is Inspectifying this process. So they own majority of it. In that case, the company is called a subsidiary, right? But if they own, I think, less than 50%, basically they're not a majority shareholder. That company is an associate company for WeBuyCars. So Ponting said WeBuyCars executives visited the National Automotive Dealers Association show in the US last year and identified a number of cutting-edge vehicle evaluation technologies internationally. Our decision to use Inspectify rather than Dakar is because it uses better technology and improves the reports from a technological point of view. So they're basically saying is Dakar's technology is dog shit, basically. That's just it. They're saying Inspectify they have better technology. And but they saw this technology when they visited a show last year in the US. So this show is the National Automotive Dealers Association show. So they visited the show. Mabefika lapha. Mabefika US babona technology abangakaze bayibona. But you know what? We're paying all this money to Dakar and then they're shagging us. We got file reports, we got people coming back saying Sbat Daisili Mote Pedai. and we have to pay for it because here's the show. So now that 2026. Another one is happening this year in 12 March 2026. I think this is it. Focus room. It's in JHP, in fact, or it could be one of the shows. Dealer-led retail demand drives strong finish to 2020. Yeah, so they're saying Dakar has dog shit technology, like just putting it in plain language. And then they're saying the reports were difficult to understand, so we could use technology to make them more understandable from a CPA point of view. So CPA is Consumer Protection Act, right? So Ponting, sales director, then he said, we want to be the dealer in the market you want to be the leader in the market, and a lot of dealers are now also using Dakar, he added. And that's another thing for Dakar. Like as much as scaling and getting more customers is good, right? But there tends to be a problem with maintaining the quality of your service if you're getting more people, right? It was easy when you had 200 customers. But then when you have 5,000 customers, it becomes difficult, right, to maintain the quality level. Especially for a big client like WeBuyCars, who are also a B2B or, So it makes sense. So he says, we started with Dakar 5 years ago with their condition report, and a lot of people copied us, with Dakar starting to do report for multiple dealers across South Africa. So it's just another way of differentiating ourselves, I guess. So he said WeBuyCars has invested heavily in technology for Inspectify to handle vehicle condition reports. MoneyWeb requested comment from Dakar, but has not yet received a response. Of course you won't. So the NCC settlement, here we go. So Ponting said the timing of the launch of Inspectify is very good in terms of outcome of the settlement agreement reached with the National Consumer Commission. So this is a reference to the NCC reporting in December that WeBuyCars had agreed to pay 2.5 million in a fine and 3.4 million in consumer redress in terms of a settlement agreement it entered into with the commission. God damn, 5.9. So WeBuyCars had to pay 5.9 because Dakar were giving them faulty reports, right, about the cars. And then Abantu came back, but we have about their cars. So the consumer redress relates to WeBuyCars agreeing to refund 31 affected consumers. So 31 people were affected. So the total amount was 3.4 million. Right, so it's 3.4 went to the people, and then 2.5 was a fine. I guess it had to Hulman. God damn, 5.9. I would fire them too, bruh, because 5.9. God damn. So the settlement agreement followed the NCC receiving complaints from consumers in the past 3 years, alleging that WeBuyCars had failed to provide remedies as required under the sale agreement signed between the company and the consumers. The NCC said in December it had formed a reasonable suspicion that WeBuyCars' terms and conditions, particularly in relation to warranty and terms of sale, contravened several provisions of the CPA. So they're saying they were shagging the consumers when it came to a warrant and the terms of sale, right? So they were contravening some of the act, which is the Consumer Protection Act, CPA. Man, okay, let's go down. Received by the NCC related to the Dakar vehicle condition reports. So they just took it, Yogi blame by Beagu Dakar, but stressed that in context, WeBuyCars received very few complaints overall. Of course, PR. So he said we sold 172 vehicles in 2024. Of which only 0.34% were referred to the Motor Industry Ombudsman of South Africa. So it's a small number. So Inspectify is local focus. So WeBuyCars website refers to Inspectify as South Africa's next generation vehicle inspection company providing independent and professional condition reports. Explaining the rationale for the establishment of Inspectify, WeBuyCars said that for years, South Africans had to rely on global solutions for vehicle conditioning reports, with nothing designed specifically for local conditions. Oh, Dakar is like what? German or something? Let me see. Dakar is a vehicle testing and inspection organization founded in Berlin. Oh my god. Yeah, so it's a German company, right? So they're saying they want to introduce AMA solutions for the South African market, right? Of which I guess it makes sense. I mean, they're the only people who can at this point, right? Because I think the second hand market, they just inserted themselves perfectly with WeBuyCars, and it's at a perfect time, honestly. Like imoto ezintsha ziyabiza and they are weaker. Insurance is right. And then WeBuyCars just came perfectly to insert that. I mean, you also look the emergence of imotos asechina, like about Omoda or Haval and them. So really, abantu are no longer that enticed with like traditional brands or car manufacturing brands. So he says with no alternative options, WeBuyCars took the initiative and established Inspectify, a solution built for South Africans. Although a subsidiary of WeBuyCars, Inspectify operates independently and will expand its services and operations under the guidance of an independent management team and board. You see, that's the most important thing when it comes to this, right? The independent factor, because it's cool. It's cool for them to take the control because they want to assume control. Like, right, you want to vet your own companies, and then you want to know what the third party is not kind of shagging you in the process. But then, I mean, the third party also, he kind of it protects the consumer, right? Because it's a third party and they give an unadulterated opinion, right? So the opinion is objective. But then the problem is when we buy cars bezenzela independently. I mean, umuntu make dicely motor, they can do anything in motor. They can wind back the kilometers, they can do this, they can do that. So there is that conflict of interest as well on the part of who we buy cars, is to say who now represents the customer, because quote unquote. But the thing is now they are also a customer. That's why it gets tricky, because they're a customer when they're buying a car from someone else. But then Masebe dies. They're no longer a customer, so they're a seller. But then they are selling the car on the basis that they bought it in a good condition. Right? So it's an interesting balancing act, and it will be an interesting balancing act, and to see how WeBuyCars maneuvers it. Because last year they just went public, right? Was it last year when they went public? There's a graph here. Yeah, they went public last year, and I mean they're trading at like 48 rand right now. Right? And Inspectify can be a really important asset in terms of especially reputational damage, because imoto izinto that have to do with reputation a lot. Cebisa njani bafo? Rabelani, Willie Jones, TT, how's it? Hi, bro. So, I was saying Inspectify is going to be a very important asset for WeBuyCars, such that imoto has to do with trust, because even taking imoto when there's really a trust factor, because I don't know what you got doing that moto. You know, I don't know where you've been, and all those kind of things. You know, but then the article continues and says Inspectify's advantage lies in a locally developed system designed for consistency, clarity, and South African conditions. So the technology Inspectify has incorporated gives customers much more information than before and a complete picture of what they buy. Okay. So we buy cars said Inspectify has been certified by the retail motor industry and adheres to strict consumer code of conduct. Okay, okay. However, Ponting said the report will be unable to confirm the severity of the previous accident damage, which is interesting. So they'll get the reports, but the report won't tell how much damage was done. If Imoto was in an accident previously, right? Pretty much won't say. But then this led to the South African Insurance Association, which represents short-term insurers, on 1 March 2020 or 1 September 23 rather, launching a free public access vehicle salvage database, but this excluded vehicles designated as code 2. So Econi database for cars that are beyond repair or cars that have been in accidents before, right? But then there's different codes. So code 2 is like uneconomical or just too expensive to written off, and or written off cars. So that's code 2, right? So then code 2 vehicles were to be added to the VSD at a later date, but SAIA subsequently reneged on this commitment because some of its insurance company members were opposed to making this information publicly available. I wonder why. SAIA said at the time it was determined that the most critical and urgent vehicle information to make available was code 3. So code 3 was vehicles with structural defects that require substantial rebuilding, and code 3A, which can only be used for spare parts. So we'll see how this WeBuyCars does with this, right? So they got their own company now. They got their own company that's going to vet these cars, right? Yeah. Next topic. I mean, what else I want to talk about? Okay, I want to talk about Tigerbrands special dividend, right? So I want to talk about Tigerbrands special dividend. So Tigerbrands, they declared a special dividend a couple of days ago? Or in fact, they communicated that their special dividend was or has been approved by the Reserve Bank, because when a company issues a special dividend, usually it's because of this reason and the other, and it requires some regulational approval, right? And usually it's the Reserve Bank. So they said they'd gotten the approval they needed from the Reserve Bank. So let's see. I'm gonna pull up that article here. Tigerbrand special. Yeah. Okay, there it goes. Yeah, there it goes. So Tigerbrands announced a finalization, or this was a document relating to finalization information. What the hell? Regarding the special dividend, God. So shareholders are referred to the company's dividend declaration announcement of 26 November 2025, in which the company declared a gross special dividend of 27.10 cents. God damn. Per ordinary share, which nets to about 21.68 cents per ordinary share. God damn. So this special dividend is 27 rand per share. That's a lot of money for a dividend. So a special dividend, what is it? To be honest, special dividend comes from usually if extraordinary things happen in a financial year. So usually it's things like, say a company was being sued or they were going through a lawsuit, someone was suing them. And then when they're going through the lawsuit, they had to reserve some cash. I mean, assuming they're going to lose the lawsuit, right? But then say they don't lose the lawsuit. I mean, this happened with Coronation. Coronation declared a special dividend as well. I think it was last year or some. Because I think they went through the same thing. I think special dividend was like 700 million or something. Yeah. This was Coronation last year. So this was 19 August 2024. And the dividend was 153 cents per share, which is like 153 cents, 1 rand 53 cents. 1 rand 53 cents per share. So now contrast that 1 rand 53 cents per share to 27 rands per share by Tigerbrands. Man, Tigerbrands is that old dog. You know, that ever reliable dog that is always there. And you don't expect it to do a lot, you know? It doesn't bark a lot, doesn't make a lot of noise. I conquered iphuma izinyo kuphela. That's Tigerbrands. I mean, they're an old dog, man. Like, they're not excited. They're running through the streets. They're doing all the tricks and impressing the neighbors and stuff like that. That's not Tigerbrands, bro. Like, Tigerbrands is that old dog. Is cartel, but it's reliable, right? It's reliable. Making new puppies every year. Biting every intruder in the house every year, making it easy. Like, that's Tigerbrands, and it makes sense. Like earlier on, I talked about like printing cash and cash generative businesses. Like, Tigerbrands is a cash generative business, and you look at their brands, they pretty much own the whole cupboard. Like from Cool, Cross and Blackwell, All Gold, Jungle, Oats, Oros, Maynards, Energade, Ingram's, Camphor, Doom, Testic. Bruh, that's... You travel across South Africa, you're going to find all these brands in every one of us' cupboards. Uzothola lezi zinto. Sidla lezi zinto lezi. But you guys remember the Camphor? Do you guys remember the Camphor advert? Konjuzwa in the advert. Do you guys remember the Camphor advert? Oh, man. That was a classic. Camphor cream advert. There you go. I was watching it a couple of days ago, I think. Yeah, there we go. Wait. Hi everyone, Rabelan, you keep going in and out. Hlala, we're gonna learn a lot. If anything, go to YouTube. Come join me on YouTube, buffet too. Nah. Kev was legendary. This advert right here. This advert right here was legendary. And that's Tigerbrands. Tigerbrands own pretty much all the biggest brands in our cupboards. Testic, Doom. I mean, it's summer right now. I'm a cockroach are everywhere. We're using Doom. So that's how they're a cash generative business that just keeps paying dividends every year, pretty much, right? And they're not loud in terms of share price. Their share price is on you, their share price is volatile, and you're gonna enter 10,000 and turn your 10,000 to 100,000. It's possible, but that's not Tigerbrands' thing or Tigerbrands' nature as a business. They're a cash generative business that produces value, right? Like all the brands that they sell, that's like grounded brands that produce cash, whether it's summer or it's winter, or it doesn't matter. They produce cash. I mean, look at this dividend. They paid in July 415 cents per share, which is like 4.15 cents. 4.15 cents they paid a dividend, and this is like what? 2 July 2025, right? And now they're paying 27.10. 27.10. Trading at what right now? 382. 382 rand. And they're recovering. If you look at this share price, they're recovering. Like Tigerbrands is recovering. Like they went through like a whole 2019. What's this? 2019, yeah. 2020, yeah. This is the slump. So 2020, I guess. Oh yeah. They had listeriosis. You guys remember listeriosis? So there was a listeriosis outbreak 2017, 2018. You could see like it really hindered them a lot. Like they lost a lot of money. A lot of their valuation, in fact. But oh man, it was in listeriosis. Listeriosis was what? 2017, 2018. And Tigerbrands, I want to think Tigerbrands owns the company. Tigerbrands owns the company. Let's see. The 2017-2018 South African listeriosis outbreak was a widespread outbreak of Listeria monocytogenes food poisoning that resulted from contaminated processed meat produced by Enterprise Foods, a subsidiary of Tigerbrands. Oh my goodness, in Polokwane. So there were 1,060 confirmed cases of listeriosis during the outbreak, and about 216 deaths. God damn. Kwashona abantu konje listeriosis. Yo. And you see why. Like you can see it in the chat. Like clearly it's there. So then COVID came. It's like 1 month, but you can see they kept rebounding. And in fact, it seemed like the only thing that stopped this falling from the cliff was COVID. And I think people sort of went back to Tigerbrands because during COVID, people were looking for available companies to put their money in. Abantu babengasebenzi, abantu babehleli emakhaya, you know. So people went into the stock market, some invested, or a lot of people invested, in fact. So that's Tigerbrands. So this dividend of 27.10 rand or 27.10 cents, it nets to 21.68 cents, 21 rand 68 cents. So the reason why it's 21 rand 68 is because of dividend tax. So when a company calls Elama dividends, what happens is it gets taxed, right? But it doesn't get taxed kuwena, right? It's the company who pays on your behalf. So by the time your money ifika kuwena, it's already taxed. So let's see how much. It's probably 20%, 160, 710. Yeah, it's like 20%. So 20% of dividend tax, and then you're gonna get paid 21.68 cents per share. So the payment of the special dividend is subject to the approval of the South African Reserve Bank. Shareholders are therefore advised that the South African Reserve Bank approval has now been obtained, and the silent dates in respect of the ordinary share or ordinary and special dividend as announced on 26 November remain unchanged as follows. So they have like 4 dates here. So the first date is something called the cum dividend date. So the cum dividend date is like the last date you can buy shares if you want to participate in this dividend, right? So the 13th of January, which is like I think Tuesday next week, is the last date for you to buy Tigerbrands shares. If you buy them before or on the 13th of January, then you're gonna get the dividend. If you don't, bye-bye. So bona on the next cycle. So shares commenced trading ex the ordinary and special dividend on Wednesday, 14 January. So the next day, the shares will be basically the dividend would have expired. You didn't buy in time, so you're not gonna participate in the dividend. It's pretty straightforward. So the recording date to determine those shareholders entitled to the ordinary and special dividend is Friday. So he registered bazolithatha on Friday, right? Friday, 16 January. And then the monies will be paid on 19 January, which is the following Monday. Right? So how much is 2168 and how do you think of it? So let's assume you own like 500 shares of Tigerbrands. You're probably gonna get, you're gonna get 10,840, right? That's your dividend if you owned 500 shares of Tigerbrands. That's 10,850. But then, how much do the 500 shares cost? Abiza malin lama 500 shares. For you to get 10,840, how much do you have to invest? So it's like 382. Let's say 500 times 382. It's 191,000. 191,000 divided by 10,840 divided by 191,000. It's like 5.6%. So the Tigerbrands has what we call it's not dividend yield. So dividend yield, like you can't because this is a special dividend. But that's like 5.6% return, right? On this special dividend. Let's see. 2710 divided by 380. Yeah, but Tigerbrands has like 7.9%. So there's something called it dividend yield. So let's see. There's something called it dividend yield. So dividend yield, you just say dividend per share divided by share price. So right now it's at what, 382%. So if you were to just calculate, assuming just like hold everything constant, this special dividend alone is like 7%, right? But usually this number is calculated using like amount dividends for the whole year. So a company would pay dividends in June or 6 months into the financial year, and then they would pay another dividend at the end of the year. So if they paid R1 after 6 June and then they paid R1 at the end, so that'll be R2 of dividends, right? So let us assume the share price is what? 10 Rand as well. So R2, you're gonna say R2 divided by the share price, which is 10 Rand, right? Then you're gonna get that 40%. No. What am I saying? 20%, right? That's the dividend yield. The dividend yield would be 20% in that instance. So I'm just assuming and holding everything constant and just saying this, right? But anyways, so yeah, that's the special dividend to Tigerbrands is paying. So a special dividend happens when a company does really well. Some companies do really well and then they issue a special dividend, or they were going through a lawsuit like I was explaining before, and then maybe they win the lawsuit, right? But they had already made allowances, or they already made or put money aside just in case they lose the lawsuit so that they could pay, right? So when the money is left after winning the lawsuit, what are you gonna do with it? Send it to the shareholders so they pay shareholders. And that's what happened with Coronation. So I think Coronation, there was a case overseas. I think it was in the UK following the success. Okay, Coronation Fund managers declared a significant non-recurring. Keyword is non-recurring. It's usually a once-off occasion. Once off in 10 years, once off in 3, in 10. It hardly happens. But when it happens, it's a rainy day. Like you can see a Tigerbrands, it's a rainy day. So special dividend of 153 cents per share in August 2024 following the successful resolution of a major tax dispute with SARS, which reversed a large provision and boosted earnings. This special payout paid in September 2024 was separate from the normal final dividend and represented a cash return to shareholders from the recovered tax provision. Yeah. So they had made a tax provision previously, coronation. And then when they won the case, they paid the money to shareholders in a form of a special dividend, right? So shareholders are referred to the company's special dividends, blah blah blah. But what happened? Why did they a special dividend payable? I'm trying to see if there is a reason why they declared the special dividend. The payment is subject to the blah blah blah. So they don't say. So it's either they did really well or why did So it looks like they sold some companies. Look like they sold. Here we go. This is 26. Oh, here we go. This is the 26 thingy. So it said this was what Tigerbrands audited group results for the year ended 30 September. Oh, these were year-end results, right? So they said Tigerbrands audited group for the year ended and the final dividend declaration. Like they always have a dividend. Tigerbrands always have a dividend, pretty much. Tigerbrands delivers a strong set of results for the year ended 30 September 2025, with volume growth and operating margin ahead of guidance and a declaration of a 4 billion special dividend to shareholders. So this, hey, my goodness. So the total package is 4 billion, right? Which is 27 rands per share. That's crazy. So silent features continued operation. So revenue increased by 2.7% to 34 billion. Operating income 35%. Milling and baking. Okay, let's see. See if we can find special dividend, man. Milling and baking, blah blah. So basically, they did well. Yeah. Oh yeah, there we go. So there were a total. So there was a total cash proceed of 5 billion from sale of non-core operations. So they basically sold some businesses, and then they raised about 5 billion from Ukdaisalo, those companies, or some of the operations. Let's see. They also say there was an improvement in working capital management, which contributed to 1.2 billion cash flow compared to 746 million inflow in the prior year. So this supported cash generated from operations increased by 1.6 billion to 7.1 billion. God damn. 7.1 from 5.5 the previous year. So that's cash from operations. So the group achieved a notable cash conversion ratio of 90% for the full year of 2025, which was 6% higher than the prior year of 84%. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, I can see it. So then they're saying on a continued operations basis, EPS increased 50% to 26 rand 62 cents per share from 17 rand 0.76 cents per share the previous year. Oh, they still have an update on the listeriosis. Oh, you see, they have a class act on the listeriosis thingy. It's still going on. As previously communicated in the SENS released on 12 May 2025, the company's lead reinsurer, QBE Insurance Group Limited, having primary conduct of the defense of the class action against Tigerbrands, authorized the insurer's attorney to make settlement offers to specific named persons who suffered damage as a result of listeriosis caused by genotype, long as numbers, of Listeria monocytogenes. Engagements between the legal representatives of the parties are continuing as regards the terms of a possible settlement, with a view of finding means to bring finality to the class action litigation. Damn, Tigerbrands is still going through a lawsuit for listeriosis, and it's like 7 years later, 6 years later. And it looks like they're gonna pay. Bazokoka, they're ready to pay. Bazokoka. You know what? They're gonna pay. They're gonna pay. But yeah, that's I guess that's where the 4 billion comes from, right? So they made a lot of money, and then they sold businesses, and then they're paying it in form of a special dividend. Great time to be a Tigerbrands investor right now. Okay, I think we've been on this for a while. Let's move on to other topics, man. Did this, Venezuela and Russia. Man, what's going on with these guys? What's going on with Trump? Trump is taking everything. He took Russia's oil yesterday. I want to talk about gold. And especially with Trump now taking everything. I want to talk about gold and silver, because I saw a chart. I saw a chart yesterday talking about silver breaking out and everything. I think this was it. This was yesterday's chart. So silver seems to be doing what gold did last year. And where does this come from? Honestly, it comes from Trump's instability. Because a lot of countries own American debt, and America is over indebted right now, right? America is over indebted. That's why you see Trump lashing out. I mean, with the tariffs, snatching countries' resources in broad daylight. I mean, it's like, bruh, Siboni colonialism again in daylight, in broad daylight, you know? But he's lashing out because America is really in trouble, like as far as debt is concerned. And, you know, it's crazy that people have always said the dollar is not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold. Man, American dollar is backed by the most important thing in the world. The army. The biggest army in the world. The biggest guns in the world. You know? And they got the most guns. And what more do you need? I mean, if we look at Game of Thrones, I'm Game of Thrones motherfuckers, they didn't care, bruh. They took whatever was theirs. They took whatever they wanted to take. Mapum pum munjan. Hi. I'm talking about Trump, I'm talking about everything else. So they took Game of Thrones. They took. I mean, you remember there's that scene where Cersei sends her whole army when they go and invade the thingy. What is it? I think it's the High Garden. Yeah, High Garden. They go about invade the High Garden. Who's this? Family guy Marjorie and them. They had gold. And they were not doing what they were told to do. Like they've been telling Venezuela do this. They're not doing what they've been told. When You got the guns and you got the money to do it. Yeah, go buy it. Yeah, go buy it. It's bad. So, but then on the other hand, what that does is that geopolitics is very unstable right now. Like, geopolitics is very unstable because if Venezuela were in bed with China, they were in bed with Russia, right? They have like 20 fighter jets from like 2006, 2008. They were given by Russia and everything else, right? But the military is so outdated, bruh. It's what chance do you stand against the America, right? But in America is over indebted. And then Trump is lashing out with all the tariffs, with all these things, is what he was doing pretty much ever since I figure office in, right? And then what that does is that abantu are looking for alternative ways to park their money, or alternative ways to pretty much replace the dollar, because the dollar is a reserve currency, right? If ufuna ukuthenga oil, or ufuna ukuthenga coal, or ufuna ukuthenga pretty much any international commodity, right, in the marketplace, you're gonna have to convert your currency into dollars, and then you buy whatever commodity you want to buy, especially oil, right? Especially oil and gold. So usually what that happens when people lose or start to lose the confidence with the American dollar, they tend to gold. They buy gold because gold is limited, right? It's finite, which means it has value compared to the American dollar. And then they press the machine and then by print them out. So that's what happened last year with gold. Like, a lot of people were not at ease with the American way of doing things, like with the tariffs and sort of poking everyone in the eye, telling them to pay up. So people started to look for better ways to park their money, especially in China. Especially in China, because I know a lot of Asian companies, I know a lot of gold strike. See, they just found the largest gold deposit in East China Sea. I didn't even see this. Let's see this.
Major minerals breakthrough off its east coast, uncovering what officials say is Asia's largest undersea gold deposit. But China's first undersea gold deposit has been discovered off the Jiaorong Peninsula near Laizhou in eastern Shandong province. And officials describe it
Under
as the
the
largest in
sea.
Asia.
How do you mine under the sea? How do you mine gold under the sea, bro?
Size of the find, they say it pushes Laizhou's province gold reserve to over 3,900 tons, roughly 26% of China's total known gold reserves.
Them Chinese motherfuckers would figure out a way, man. Try to take all the Chinese steel and divert it, man. You can stop producing iPhones now, man. Dig gold, go and dig gold, China. Now they got infinite riches. Anyways, I was saying, so then people went to gold last year, right? A lot of people went, like investors, put a lot of their money into gold last year because America is unstable, quote unquote, right? So, for example, last time I checked, gold was at like 4.5. Like trading at crazy numbers. Yeah, 4.4. So 4.5 was like 24 December. We went Christmas and then it came back, right? To see this. So that's gold, right? That is gold. But now this year, silver might be doing the same thing as well. So we will see. I mean, even here in South Africa, like last year, the JSE was dominated by gold companies or mining companies. Like pretty much a big portion of the JSE last year was boosted by mining companies, because if you strip out the mining stocks last year, we were down bad, like as far as the JSE was concerned. But if you look at it as an index, it reached never seen before height, right? Smashed all my records. But mining companies were leading the charge, and it's simply because of that. Like, mineral prices went through the roof. That's good for mining companies, right? So we will see this year. I mean, they just took Venezuela now. Trump just took Venezuela. So we will see what happens with that, right? Yeah. I want to move on now. I want to move on to another topic, man. Where we at with it? Where we at? Say 1 hour. I thought I think we got time. Okay, we need to cover Gwede. Gwede fit. Okay, before we cover Gwede, let's talk about Gwede. Let's talk about Americans, since we're talking about Americans anyway. Americans, they took Russian oil yesterday. Well, they took Venezuelan oil the previous day. Man, it's a great time to be an American. Now, if you were to be an American right now, like honestly, Trump is exactly what a drunk uncle would look like if they were to be a president, right? You know, your drunk uncle has all these ideas. I would text everyone. I mean, there was a video of a female I saw saying, you know what we should do as females? We should create our own island and go somewhere so we hlalela sodwa. But then the catch is we invite all the men, and all the men bafike bezosakela, and then they leave. Bafike bezobusa udoti, and then they leave. You know, is that kind of? I think for me, Trump is equivalent of that type of thinking, because he's doing everything, or he's doing some things that you would think a typical white American would think what we should do. Let's take oil. Let's take Venezuelan oil. No, you have to go through the committee, or you have to go through parliament. You have to get approvals. No, I'm the president. I can just take oil. Am I not the commander in chief? Yes, you are. So why can I not just take the thing? Why can I not send the army to go take the country, kidnap him, Maduro, and that's it? That's what I'm saying. That's something your drunk uncle will think about. Ngay 25 zika December ngokhismusi mase mhlabe kahle. That's something he would say. Right? My president, he should be able to do anything. If I want to take a country, I should be able to take a country. Because I want to. I got the biggest army in the world. I got the most guns. I got the biggest guns. And I got the meanest, toughest motherfuckers ready to risk their lives for this flag. Right? And he's going on and he's doing it. And I really think whatever he's doing for Americans, if they don't reverse it, because that's the thing in politics, and then they come in and they reverse stuff. Like, he wanted to reverse every presidential thing, every presidential declaration written by Biden. Like, why would you do that? Like, you really don't want to do that on principle. You just want to do it just because you want to spy to Joe Biden. That's Trump. He's that kind of a person. That's how he thinks. Right? He's literally your drunk uncle running a country. I mean, look at this. I am pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at market price. And that money will be controlled by me, Mr. Big Me. Opu Kendrick. Trump is Mr. Big Me. And that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela in the United States. I've asked Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute this plan immediately. It will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks in the United States. Thank you for this. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. It will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks. Imagine, bruh. Like, for Trump, he doesn't complicate things. I mean, what he did in Venezuela didn't even have to go through Congress. It didn't go through Congress. It's still going to go through Congress. The tariffs didn't go through Congress. He didn't take them through Congress. He just woke up and wrote a presidential declaration and I'm charging China 100% tariffs. That's it. Whoever's doing, they would be catching up. Whoever is the, what is it, the authority, whether it's lawyers or whether it's other politicians in the house, they will keep up, make laws. But I've already decided, man, I'm implying tariffs. He's literally your drunk uncle running a country, and he's doing, it's like, anyway. So what I was saying is, so they took Venezuelan oil. This is like on, I think, when was the 7th? I think it was Monday. No? Tuesday. 7, 8. They took Maduro's oil. And then Izolo, yesterday, they took Russian oil. Look at this. Nah, man, I can't see anything here. I can't see shit. I don't know how true is this. There was this video kept circulating, but I don't know how accurate is it. If they don't undo whatever he's doing, really, there's going to be some benefits for Americans, like from Trump's presidency. I don't want to lie. Honestly, that's what I believe in. You know? Because, like, for example, like, loudmouth is good. Like, even here in South Africa, you have politicians saying, I will take back the land, I will do this, I will do that, I will do this, I will do that, right? And even throughout Africa, you've had that. I mean, do this, we're going to take back our minerals and everything else. But then there's always a gap with executing those ideas, right? Umundu would have all these ideas, but then when it's time to execute, they'll be stifled by either this or that bureaucracy. Like, ooh, like in Obama, for example, I mean, there's a video by J. Cole where he raps about Obama, and he said they let the brother steer the ship, and they didn't tell him that the ship was sinking. I think Obama, when he became president himself, he probably had ideas, but when Maisefika office, he found out how really difficult it is to do things. I mean, he tried with Obamacare. They reversed it. He tried other things that he thought were good and he wanted to be his legacy, that he wanted them to be his legacy, but they reversed them. So I'm saying, unless someone else who's going to come after Trump reverses whatever he's doing, but you cannot tell me that abducting a president's country, a country that has the largest oil reserves, more than Saudi Arabia, right? A country that has gold reserves. You cannot tell me it's a bad thing for the country, right? For Americans. Now, human rights, this or that, we can debate, right? But then there's the thing with power. Like, I was making an example with Game of Thrones earlier. That's the thing with power. Like, people with power, they take. They don't wait for approval. They don't wait for this man to say, okay, go ahead now. They take. And America is a very powerful nation. And they take whatever they like. And whether that's good or bad, I leave that up to you to debate. We can debate it. We can talk about it. But that is just the way, or the rule of the jungle, basically. That's what people call it. You want something, you take it. But then we will see. We will see how Russia has responded with this. What have they said? What do we know about the US siege of the Russian oil flanker? Is this the ship? It's the ship. Looks like it. So this is the shape. United States forces boarded and seized the Russian-flagged oil tanker in the Atlantic Ocean Wednesday following a weeks-long chase on the high seas. They've been chasing this thing for weeks, which has escalated tensions with Moscow and piled further pressure on its ally Venezuela. The aging, rusting tanker, originally called the Bella One, was sanctioned by the U.S. in 2024 for operating within a shadow fleet of tankers transporting illicit Iranian oil. So basically, the Americans, they want to grip oil, or they want to get a grip of the oil trade, basically, again, because that's basically what's going to determine or maintain them as a reserve currency, maintain the dollar as a reserve currency, right? Like making sure that they control oil, and oil is still transacted using the dollar. If you want oil, convert your money into dollars and then you buy oil. That's the petrodollar. There's something called the petrodollar, right? Of which is the most important thing into the US dollar hegemony in terms of maintaining it as the biggest or the most influential currency in the market. So it's the petrodollar. So US seizes Russian flagged oil tankers linked to Venezuela. So it has to do with Venezuela. The US intercepted the Russian flagged Marinera, formerly known as the Bella One, in the northern Atlantic Ocean weeks after it fled an American blockade of sanctioned Venezuela-linked oil tankers. Oh, so they had done a blockade. Baby, the ship was sanctioned by the US in 2024 for operating within a shadow fleet. So I guess, there's what is called a shadow fleet. Bawafihlile, amatanka bawafihlile. Transport to oil was Iran. And if you know anything, Iran is one in America. So if you're transporting Iranian oil, we're gonna snatch it. That's basically the crux of it. But funny enough, I saw something about Iran and South Africa and Russia. Oh, Kwanazi endorsed this. Oh, no, automate speed trend. Okay. Iranian forward Beshi, Iris, Macron arrived. So South Africa is apparently this is my ex. You can go in there and see I have 0 followers. Push your boy in there. So apparently they're running a mad drills this week. There is South Africa, Iran, and yeah. And that's Friday, 9th January, which is tomorrow. Supposedly they're running a mad drills. We're playing with fire, We're playing with fire, say South Africa. And I just wonder if we're ready to fight. That's all I'm going to say. Are we ready to fight? Are we willing to fight? Do we even have the army? Because amajita ayidla yonke imali yokuthenga ibhamu mfethu. Ayidla yonke imali yokuthenga amabhomu. Ayidla yonke imali yokuthenga amabhuzu. The army yethu was stranded at Congo a few months ago. A few months ago. But now we're doing drills with Iran and Russia, which is cool. But all I'm saying is, Venezuela by invadile. Where was Russia, man? Where was Russia? By the time they react to Russia and everyone else, Joburg CBD will be fucked up and we'll be barely up like this. So if you ever drop a bomb or a pegula say America. That's all I'm saying, right?
With what the United States is doing. President Ramaphosa, why are you so concerned with what the United States is doing? Why are you so concerned about other nations? Eh? We got our own problems here. Ramaphosa, we have poverty here. We have inequality here. We have high levels of unemployment in South Africa, Ramaphosa. Don't you know? Huh? Why are you so concerned with what Donald Trump is doing for his people? Huh? Donald Trump, in fact, I'm appealing to you, sir. Donald Trump, please, leave the president of Venezuela. Take Ramaphosa, please. Take Ramaphosa instead. Take him, kidnap him. You can play with his nose in your house. You need this man.
Okay.
He loves you so much. He has forgotten he's the president of South Africa. Not Venezuela, South Africa. Not Palestine, South Africa. Huh? Why are you so concerned, Ramaphosa, about what Donald Trump is doing? Huh? Ramaphosa, Donald Trump is...
I guess.
The ANC consistently condemns injustice irrespective of who perpetrates it. The movement therefore calls for restraint, de-escalation, and a return to dialogue. To Venezuela as the African National Congress can be summed up as nothing else but imperialist aggression. And the United States and the Trump administration, in particular, imposing itself as the world policeman. The Freedom Charter correctly states, there shall be peace and friendship. Let all people...
Freedom Charter also said the land belongs to XYZ. So are we gonna cut the Freedom Charter when we want to? And then see and be progressive about other things, but
love their people and their country now say, as we say, these freedoms we will fight for, side by side, throughout our lives, until we have won our liberty. To this extent, we have resolved to work with all the progressive forces in our country and mobilize against the American imperialist aggression, including against our own.
Few months ago, Labantu they had a chance. Maguguti ba serious about unplugging us from America. They had a chance. Uguti to make other allies when America they were peddling that nonsense they were peddling. Right? They had a chance. Uguti, let's find new allies. What did they do? You guys went back now America na fear now. So now what are you talking about, Mr. SG?
We have resolved to work with all the progressive forces in our country and mobilize against the American imperialist aggression, including against our own country. Folding arms, looking on, and doing nothing will mean that we have abandoned the cause of fighting for justice.
Man, it's just talk. Bakhuluma kuphela laba. Utheni Mr. President then? Ramaphosa. Mr. President. And then June 8th. Today is January 8th, isn't it? Oh. It's January 8th statement. You guys going there? You who still watches that thing with vigor? Bazothina. I mean, kusakhona ithembiso zangu unyaka odlule engagciniwe, Mr. President. So January 8th. Politics is crazy, man. Let's look at this. So ukhulume ngapho ngoTrump la.
No, I'm not worried about an invasion to South Africa, not at all. I think we are way far from anything like that. And
isn't there a military base in Botswana or something? I think there's a military base in Botswana, USA in Botswana or something. I could be wrong. But I know there's a base in Botswana that could hit Pretoria within 15 minutes. I know that. So you can't say you can't say we're far. We'll get the heat. 15 minutes from Botswana to the Union
No, I'm not
buildings.
worried about an invasion to South Africa, not at all. I think we are way far from anything like that. And in the end, the United States is an important country in the world. And we have always believed that any differences with whichever country, including the United States, needs to be discussed. We need to sit down and find solutions. And we follow the Madiba doctrine that there is no problem without a solution. And the best way
Ngiyakuthanda ukudiscuss or Ramaphosa bathanda ukudiscuss. The thing about it is emelika bahope umasile, bro. Emelika bahope umasile. It's really that simple. Mase bekufuna bazofika bazokulanda.
where parties sit down together. And it is through this doctrine that Nelson Mandela led us to bring an end to the nightmare of apartheid. A doctrine of engagement, of discussion, of negotiations and collaboration.
Namanje leli khehle ngabe lokho liphumule Nkosi yami ikhehla labantu. Right. Leli liphumulele nje without iCadre dragging his name into anything that's got nothing to do with him. Nelson Mandela said this. Let the man rest. Let him rest, bro. Yo, let Mandela rest. Why? I'm a billionaire, Buffett. Did he also say that? No. Anyways, that's what he said. That's what the president said. Now I got nothing to say, Shem. I'm afraid to say shit. But Trump is just actualizing America's potential. What are these guys doing? God knows what they're doing. So let's look at Gwede. Ithini Tiger? Ithini ubaba Tiger? Oh my God. You guys know the video. Gwede walk. The video I can walk, I'm afraid. To the podium or something. A young Gwede. Tiger's body. Tiger. Just leap, man. Just leap. It's nice to be a politician. Just leap. You can just provide leap and walk off. I'm told. No, is this him? Let's see.
Clear social ownership must be part of it. Otherwise, we're going to create what we call an Irish coffee scenario. That Irish coffee scenario means that you will have your coffee at the bottom, black at the bottom, with a white cream. That means the actual cream of the economy remains primarily in white hands. And you will have sprinkles of chocolate on top of the cream, which means that very few blacks are going to be empowerment group.
Also, he knew. So he. Oh, nah, Levita. Now everything he put out. So he knew this was gonna happen. Isn't it crazy? And then they went ahead and then they were part of architecturing it. Life's a bitch, man. Isn't it crazy? But he was talking a bunch of nonsense.
Particularly when
Expect that they believe that whites are the saviors.
those good news that we talk about as a country, as a collective, right? But here's the thing now, Minister. Conversations are moving away with from people judging political parties on their intentions, but more on what they have delivered. Are you happy with what the ANC has delivered so far?
Can I tell you the difference between South Africa and China? I want to use China because it went through the revolution, cultural revolution, which almost destroyed the country.
China is active leaders. Have active leaders who put the country first.
Transformed it into a current China. The difference is that Chinese people put their skin in the fire. South Africa will develop a theory of delivery, which means you sit back, you sit in the sun, and you expect the state to deliver. And people are not involved. And I'm saying, if our people can be involved, we'll be a better country. Let's work on that. It's a mistake we've committed as the ANC. I must own up as well. Where we created a passive society instead of ensuring that there is an active society that participates. That's why this debate, for example, let me squeeze it. There's a new debate now about BEE, that it should be scrapped. People who say that are mainly white parties who are.
You know, it's always interesting to me. Mangibona a politician le ANC nalo likhuluma like me. Naye ukhuluma njengami, ungitshela ama problems. Ungitshela inkinga zase South Africa, diagnosis. People are saying BE is a problem. I mean, there was a professor, I think his last name is Gwede. I'm forgetting his first name. But I think he's a professor at Vet. Professor Gwede. He said something in the terms of BE money has been circulated or has been circulating within 100 people, like 100 trillion. I think Robert, let me see, is it Robert? William Gwede, forgive that part. Professor William Gwede, right, from Vet School of Governance. He estimated $1 trillion was transferred amongst fewer than 100 people in South Africa, right? And those are black people, abantu abamnyama lawo. Of which is exactly in the issue of Gwede la. Funny enough. Which there will be the bottom. Coffee. This is my cup. The bottom is coffee. The middle is your cream at the top. Then there are sprinkles. Brown sprinkles on top of your coffee. About Motsepe, about Ramaphosa, about so and so, right? It's exactly what he was saying.
Clear social ownership must be part of it. Otherwise, we're going to create what we call an Irish coffee scenario.
Irish coffee.
What Irish coffee scenario means.
How does Irish coffee look? Umzulu mina ngazi ngama Irish coffee. Irish coffee. See, that's Irish coffee. This is what he was saying. This is what Gwede was saying. There is it. I want the one with sprinkles on top. Yeah, it's the one I want. This is basically South Africa. He really summed it up. There we go. This is South Africa. He really just summed it up into Irish coffee. This is the bottom. This is black. And the top is white. And then on top of that, you got the sprinkles there. The 100 people. And then you got the fewer big dogs. The fewer big black dogs. Like paws. You got the big dogs. I'm a black billionaires. I'm a what black multi-millionaires. Whether in dollar or in rand cents. This is what Gwede meant when he talked about the Irish coffee. This is how the Irish coffee looks.
You will have your coffee at the bottom. Black at the bottom. With a white cream.
Yep.
That means the actual cream of the economy remains primarily in white. And you will have sprinkles of chocolate on top of the cream.
Yep.
Which means that very few blacks are going to be empowerment groupings.
He doesn't even have to finish. You see Irish coffee. That's what he said. And he was young. He was a young man then. Look at him now. He's a grandfather, practically an old man. How old is he? Let me see. How old is Gwede? I think 70 or something. 70 years. In 6 months, 71. But no, he still has something to say about jobs in South Africa. What does he have to offer? His life is behind him.
For depriving black people of participating in the economy, one as entrepreneurs and two as skilled individuals. And all of those are kept in the backyard. And I'm saying that debate reflects the emboldenment of white supremacy in South Africa after 30 years. That white supremacy.
It's exactly what I was saying. Ukhuluma ngathi mina, he speaks like me. He tells me of all the problems that I face as an ordinary folk in South Africa, right? Ngisemkhukhwini somewhere emlazi kwamashu, at Deep Kloof. He gave me, I'm talking about all these problems lezi akhuluma ngazo ukuthi this race, white people have the power, white people have the means. Brad, Lomjida has been shintsha ama-minister, ama-cabinet since 94, ever since the dawn of quote-unquote democracy. Right? But 32 years later, now he's telling me the problem. We know the problem, sir. That's why we voted y'all 32 years ago, or our parents voted for y'all. And then some of us continue to vote for y'all continuously, right? So that nizo addressa zona lezi zinto, infrastructure is broken. Ama-potholes, amabhilidi CBD, uwaras ushonile ufela unyongo. Ufela into engekho uwaras. Someone should be cleaning up the buildings so that someone ofana nowaras ofuna uku-investor can come in and put his money and generate imali, right? And create an economy. That's what you guys should be doing. And they know this. So sometimes I usually say it's either it's ignorance or it's intentional naivety. You know, bazenze ngathi ababoni ngesibomo, because it's all about politicking. You know, every time you come to the people, you come across as if you know the problem. And ngizoyilungisa amaduze inkinga. You know the problem. This problem has been here for the past 30 years. What have you guys done about it? You know? What you've done about it, and you didn't build airports. You didn't build anything. The only thing you did, you renamed stuff that was built by these same white people. Right? So at this point, the room is becoming very small for that argument. Because seniphathile majita, seniphathile isikhathi eside, but you talking like it's me. A whole top 6 minister, he's talking like it's me. He talks like he's powerless. Maybe he is powerless. It's just that the teen abalize and this guys. How about that? Because sometimes I think about that too. Maybe it's not naivety. He really knows where his power goes and where does it end. Because we are more mekhuluma about energy stuff, mekhuluma about this or that. There are few people who check him and he never does anything about it. I mean, wayekhuluma ngamalahle uGwede a couple of months ago ukuthi kumele sisebenzise amalahle, fuck green energy in not so many words. And then Capital spoke. When Capital spoke, he shushed his mouth. And he never uttered a word about it again. I've never heard him talking about coal and energy stuff again, uGwede. So sishona ngaphi uma ukuthi kune politician elidala eseliyikhehla like him, a career politician, someone who's been in charge in South Africa, but then naye uzokhuluma ngama problems ase South Africa like an ordinary person would, right? He's talking like how an ordinary person would. Ukuthi BEE, what do you guys think we should be doing with BEE? You know, we're a long way to go. But basically what he said is, he continued. Let's play.
We all believe that whites are the savers, and that is white supremacy. That whites are superior, blacks are inferior.
All right. We'll get back to BE in just a moment.
Yes.
But are you happy with what the ANC has delivered so far?
I'm happy that we've delivered. We've changed the outlook of the country.
What did you do? New names. The only thing the ANC delivered, like honestly, besides social grants and everything, but when economically speaking, they're economically bankrupt. I want a policy that can change policies. They can change the economy. They failed in that part. But I guess it makes sense because quote unquote, they were a socialist movement. But the only thing they delivered were name changes. NSFAS that we used esafunda ngawo siyabonga ngo-NSFAS. We salute. Sifundile sama-degrees esikhuluma isingisi. Then we come back. Sizontshela ukuthi niyabheda because you didn't finish the job, Because manje sesibuyile. Let's finish this.
I'm unhappy with the fact that many of our people don't use the advantage of an ANC government. I'm not happy about that. Instead, they expect that government to take them. One day, I was traveling with a young girl from the Eastern Cape, and she says to me, the ANC took me through high school in an office school, and they gave me NSFAS. I'm a professional pharmacist. And she says, but the ANC now cannot look for a job for me. And I asked this young lady and said, so in other words, you say, the ANC has given you a fishing rod. It must now catch fish for you. And she says, no, I never looked at it from that angle. And I think that is the angle that is missing in the debate.
But also, Minister, does what you say now tie in with some of the conversations that were had, for instance, in your recent NGC, where, the party acknowledged that there was somewhat of a disconnect with its masses, with its people that it so represents?
This fishing rod thing, yes, I was still saying it. I was about to say, yes, we got degrees and we educated. Like, when the example about this lady who's a pharmacist, she's educated and such. That is cool, but ngizoyivula phi pharmacy yami if I'm gonna open a pharmacy and then there's something with NHI. Let me see, there's something asking me to co-host. But I think I'm done for the stream today. If someone invites me to co-host, I think I'm gonna agree now. But yes, we have the rod. But what's happened is that the pond, there's very few fish in the pond. Ngizoqala ibhizinisi lami bafika abafana bazongibamba inkunzi because there's crime in South Africa, cash heist, right? There's, whether it's a garage, whether it's a tavern, I don't co-sign taverns because it's killing us, but anyways, whether it's a tavern, whatever business I'm going to start, there's security factors in South Africa. Number one, there's the infrastructure ephukile. Imigwaqo feed my potholes. The buildings are dilapidated everywhere, in every major city. Pietermaritzburg, Durban, Joburg, Free State, every city, infrastructure field, right? So, ngizolibeka phi business lami, ngizolilocate phi business lami. There's security, there's no infrastructure. We just recovered from load shedding. We still do. We're still not sure. Mhlawumbe usazobuya in the next 3 months. What if load shedding ubuya in the next 2-3 months? We don't know. We're still not sure. Right? All those things. As much as I have the rod, lenda isho ukuthi ngiphethe induku manje, I can fish. But fish where? Because the pond is corrupted. The pond is dirty. You guys have dirtied the pond. Right? All fish bafida. Abasaphila. Because now, a few years ago, it was either uzoba a cadre. For you to be rich, it was either uzoba a cadre or, you're going to do this or you're going to do that. But you had to align yourself with the ANC some way, or politically, one way or another. Either publicly or privately, being under someone on a pants way. The waters have been muddied. The playing field is not the same. And you guys are not supporting someone who wants to fish for themselves. The environment is not stimulating enough for someone who wants to fish for themselves. That's the problem. Uwaras was fishing for himself, for himself. Right? There was no comrade. He didn't ask for any favor. He was fishing for himself. But there was a problem with Aiki security. And we have all these hijacked buildings, they're called, that these guys know very well about. Bayazi about all these buildings that are in Joburg and everything else. They know about these buildings, but they do nothing about them. That's the problem. So no one is saying Mr. Tiger ukuthi sifuna We don't want to work in the public, all of us. At this point already, like the public sector is igcwele public sector. It's got more people than it should, paying a lot of salaries to them, ministers, to vice ministers and their secretaries and their assistants and their security staff. Because nabo bayazi ukuthi South Africa is not safe. Nabo bahamba nama-blue lights ngemoto nga-4, ama-BM X5s. And petrol is expensive. How much is a full tank for X5? You get me? They know this, right? But now uzokhuluma naye ngathi he's an ordinary citizen. That is really strange. And disheartening, to be honest. But what do you say, man? This is what we get.
A declining electoral support and the need to.
This is what we get. You know what? I think that's gonna be it. I'm just gonna be here now. I think there's been people who've been inviting me on TikTok for a while to stream or to multi-stream, to co-host. I don't know if they're gonna invite me again. So if they do, I'm gonna accept. Because I wanted to go through these topics first, right? Then probably start talking nonsense. So let's see. So KZN Premier Industries Mkhwanazi if was attending. I mean Mkhwanazi. Like South Africa is down bad. Like we down bad. We praise Abantu for doing their job, bruh. Like we're down bad, bruh. You know when a country is praising people for doing their job. Mkhwanazi is really just uyikatela imhlophe. In what we call ehlungwini ngesiZulu. Uyikatela imhlophe ehlungwini, you know? You know that white kid my figure mawufika umlungu eloku uzenekasi or emakhaya evakashile uyambona ukuthi umlungu ke lo. Even if there's an albino child, he's that one child that you can just see from a crowd of black kids. If there's an albino child, you can see him or her, right? That's Mkhwanazi, bruh. Like he's just the brightness in all of the darkness that's within the SAPS of South Africa. How about it? But he's a spark, man. He's life, I guess. But that's simply because the waters are so muddy, you know, and the standards is so low to be a police officer. All you have to do is just be a genuine police officer. That's all it takes. Just be a genuine police officer, be honest, and do your job. You're a hero in South Africa. That is crazy. I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy. Let's see what we got on TikTok. I'm seeing for you gold. Okay. It is interesting to me. If you ask me, it's very interesting that someone can really just be praised for doing their job. But the standard is really that low, hey? I'm gonna end the stream on YouTube.